It was a crisp autumn morning, the kind where the leaves crunch underfoot like brittle memories. 6 months after I buried my husband Henry in that quiet cemetery outside Boston, I decided to drive to the farmer's market in the next town over. I needed fresh apples for pie, something to fill the empty hours. As I wandered the stalls, the smell of cinnamon and hay in the air, my eyes caught a familiar silhouette. Tall, broad shoulders, that same graying hair peeking from under a baseball cap. My basket slipped from my hands, apples rolling across the dirt. It was him, Henry, alive, laughing with a vendor over a joke I couldn't hear. My heart thundered like a storm breaking. Was I going mad? I hid behind a stack of crates, watching as he paid with cash from a wallet I recognized. The one I'd bought him for our 40th anniversary. He climbed into a truck I'd never seen and drove off. Without thinking, I got in my old sedan and followed, my hands shaking on the wheel. What I discovered that day would unravel everything I thought I knew about love, family, and the price of my silence. But it would also set me free. You see, sometimes the dead don't stay buried, and neither do the lies. The days after Henry's supposed death had been a blur of gray. I'd wake up in our creaky Victorian house in Massachusetts, the one we bought together in '78, and shuffle to the kitchen in my worn slippers, the cold hardwood floor biting at my feet. I'd make coffee for one, the steam rising like ghosts from the mug, and stare out the window at the snow-dusted garden where I'd planted roses for him years ago. Now, they were withered, thorns sharp against the frost. Laundry days were the worst. I'd fold his shirts that still smelled faintly of his cologne, pressing them to my face before tucking them away in drawers that gathered dust. Cooking became a ritual of solitude. Chopping onions that made my eyes tear more than they should, stirring soup on the stove, while the radio hummed old jazz tunes we used to dance to. The house echoed with silence, broken only by the tick of the grandfather clock Henry had fixed himself. Our son David would call once a week, his voice clipped, asking if I was managing. His wife Sarah never bothered. I'd garden in the afternoons, my knees aching as I knelt in the soil, pulling weeds that seemed to grow back overnight, much like the loneliness that rooted deeper each day. Oh, the memories that flooded me in those quiet moments. I was 25 when I met Henry at a diner in Boston, him a mechanic with grease-stained hands, me a teacher with dreams of my own. I gave it all up for him, my career, my ambitions, when we married and David came along. I stayed home, baking cookies for school events, driving to soccer practices in the rain, scraping together pennies for his college fund, while Henry worked long hours at the garage. "We'll make it, Maggie," he'd say, kissing my forehead. I believed him. I sacrificed vacations so Henry could buy tools for his business, skip new dresses to pay for David's braces. When Henry got sick 10 years ago, his heart failing, I nursed him through it, holding his hand during doctor's visits, cooking heart-healthy meals that tasted like cardboard. David was grown by then, married to Sarah, living in a fancy suburb. I'd send them money when times were tight for them, dipping into my savings. "Mom, you're a lifesaver," David would say, but the thanks grew thinner. Henry and I grew old together, or so I thought, our love like that old oak tree in the yard, strong, weathered, unbreakable. But trees can rot from the inside. As I tailed Henry's truck that day, keeping 2 cars back like in those detective shows I watched alone at night, my mind raced. He turned onto a rural road, pulling into a modest cabin hidden by pines, nothing like our home. I parked down the street, heart pounding, and crept closer on foot, the crunch of gravel under my shoes too loud in the stillness. Through the window I saw him. Henry, my Henry, pouring coffee for David. Our son was there, laughing, clapping him on the back. And Sarah, too, setting the table. My world tilted. I pressed against the cold glass, breath fogging it, listening to snippets through a cracked pane. "The insurance payout came through, Dad," David said. "500,000. Mom thinks you're gone. It's perfect." Henry chuckled. She always was too trusting. "This way, we split it, start fresh. No more scraping by." Sarah smirked. "She called yesterday, whining about being lonely, as if we owe her." The words stabbed like knives. They'd faked his death, A staged car accident, a closed casket I'd insisted on because he wouldn't want to be seen like that. All for the money. My money from years of sacrifice. I'd signed the papers in grief, never questioning. Betrayal burned through me, hot and bitter. How many times had David dismissed my calls? Busy mom. Sarah's cold shoulder at holidays. Henry's illness flares when bills piled up. They'd gaslit me for years. You're imagining things, Maggie. We don't need your help. Entitled, manipulative, turning my love into a weapon against me. That night, back home, I sat in the dark kitchen, the clock ticking like a countdown. The pain was a wave, crashing over me. Nostalgia for the family I thought we were. Heartbreak at the lies. But beneath it, a spark ignited. Enough. I'd given my life to them, folded myself small to make them big. No more. I reflected on the emptiness, the unappreciated years. Wisdom came slow, like dawn after a long night. Love without boundaries is just a cage. I needed dignity, peace. The next morning, I acted quietly, my hands steady for the first time in months. I called my lawyer, an old friend from teaching days. Change the will, I said. Everything to charity. The house, the savings. Remove David entirely. I canceled the life insurance beneficiaries, citing fraud. Oh, the irony. I packed a suitcase with essentials. My mother's necklace, symbol of unbroken strength. Photos of happier times, now just paper memories. I changed the locks, the sound of the key turning like reclaiming control. No dramatic scenes, just silent steps toward freedom. The broken bowl from last night's dinner, shattered when I dropped it in shock, lay in the trash, a symbol of what couldn't be mended. I left a note on the table, I know, and drove away to a small cottage by the ocean I'd rented in secret, waves whispering promises of new beginnings. They came 2 days later, banging on the door of the empty house. I wasn't there, but I imagined it, David's panic, Sarah's fury, Henry exposed. My phone rang endlessly. Mom, what the hell? David's voicemail hissed. This is crazy. You're overreacting. Dads, it's not what you think. Gaslighting, as always. Henry left one too. Maggie, let's talk. You owe us that. Begging now, blame shifting. I answered once, my voice calm, cold as the sea breeze. I owe you nothing. You buried our life for money. Goodbye. I hung up, the click final as a locked door. Now I sit on my porch, watching the sunrise paint the ocean gold, waves lapping like gentle applause. The air smells of salt and freedom, the sand warm under my feet. Flowers bloom in pots I planted myself, no thorns this time. The empty chair beside me isn't lonely, it's space for me. I've rediscovered peace, the kind that comes from letting go. Loneliness was the price of their betrayal, but dignity is my reward. Karma whispers in the wind. What you sow, you reap. To anyone listening, remember this. Love yourself enough to set boundaries. Sacrifice is beautiful, but not when it's taken for granted. Let go of the anchors and you'll float. I did. And for the first time in years, I feel alive.